Question. What is hard and long?
What is hard and long? It has given a birth to the whole genre of video games with similar mechanics and game design. Like, come on now, we're talking about cult classics! Elephant in the room! I mean, big and influential, and I mean quite literally, it influenced myriads of people.
Alright now. We get it. He is talking about Dark Souls series. In this particular case it's Dark Souls 3. 3 because apparently he hasn't played much video games since. What a disgrace. Move on. Chop chop now.
As you may know, most games tell their story either through narrator,
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
text, long dialogues,
I don't like you and don't want to talk to you.
or through cutscenes. But what if you encounter a game which gives you only a small amount of information explicitly? Story of Dark Souls 3 resembles jigsaw puzzles, as it is told piece by its world building, items and characters more or less in the same capacity. But not only that, it also demands a scrupulous investigation of its lore in the mentioned aspects. Now Espen Aarseth
Howdy.
highlighted 4 independent dimensions in the ludonarrative design space: world, objects, agents, and events.
Every game and every story contains these 4 elements, but they configure them differently. Game worlds can typically be linear, multicursal, or open, and this has great effect on the game's perceived narrative structure. Objects can be dynamic, user-created, or static. Agents can be presented as rich, deep and round characters, or shallow hollow bots. The sequence of events can be open, selectable, or plotted, and the narratological notion of nuclei and satellites can be used to describe 4 different game types: the linear game, the hypertext-like game, the creamy middle quest game, the non-narrative game.
If we look at Dark Souls 3 through these lenses, it is clear that it has a hub-shaped labyrinth world. It incorporates static, non-interactable, as well as static usable, destructible, and changeable objects. It is also most certainly the creamy middle, or a quest game with long list of NPCs that includes bots, shallow and deep characters. Almost all the areas that the player encounters are represented by the once flourishing civilizations or simply peaceful settlements that are now ruined and decayed, with the hordes of diabolical enemies dwelling on them. For example, right from the very beginning, the player is born at a location called Cemetery of Ash, surrounded by numerous gravestones which immediately set the tone of the game. The choice of a cemetery as an opening area is not accidental or done simply for the sake of the grim atmosphere. The player is forced to enter the mythical forest at once and learn how to play the game through trial and error. It is not a video game that easily gives away its content. Since its very beginning, it firmly keeps its veil on, giving the player small hints through some of the items, locations or NPCs. Even though a player can interact with a handful of friendly NPCs, the most they can give in terms of information is a vague foreshadowing of the future events, or something like this. Now it's not much, and for some players it will be more than enough. Just travel from one location to another and kill 19 of these guys, straight to the point, but it doesn't mean that the narrative part is the game's weak spot. And here's where I want to suggest my slight modification of Aarseth's model and add lore to it.
I see. I also have a suggestion. Why don't you shove your little modification up your ass? Ragrug, who do you think you are, you little
Now granted, lore itself is nothing new, a lot of games have it. It pretty much forms the backstory, setting, politics, religion and scenario of the game that you are playing. Now basically in video games with a straightforward narrative, you have the cast of characters, plots and its various twists and turns. You have a beginning, middle, climax and an end. Along the way you probably learn more about the world that you're playing in. The primary focus is still on the plot that your character is immediately involved in. Lore in Dark Souls games works differently. The real story is in the descriptions of the various items and weapons. Now let's imagine that you're new to the series. You beat some bosses, open couple locations, and at some point a question arises in your head. What is going on here? So you take a deep dive, or a long walk if you prefer.
Meditate about your recent experiences. Link all the dots together.
Think. Pontiff Sullivan. The Outriders. The Ruin. Dancer and the Dog. Think. It is all connected. Rejoice.
Well, even though it's only a drop in the ocean, give it some time and keep working on your investigation, and a day will come when you will look like a madman. But hey, at least you had some fun doing it. Or not.
Or you can simply search it in Bing as a normal person. Jesus Christ.
One eternity later.
I'm going to die here. Let's fast forward this shit. I swear it took more time than figuring it out on my own. So, as you can tell, the narrative aspect in this game is an abomination.
Well, I disagree.
No one fucking cares. It ends here and now.